filming in front of windows because it's not like people can see me or anything. Hi YouTube, it's Kathy, and this is my September 2023 reading wrap-up. If you're not already aware, I do weekly entertainment wrap-ups of everything I read, watch, and listen to, but today we're just talking about the books. I'm going to start with my nerdy hardcore stats and charts and then get into what I read. Also, I put chapter markers in all of my videos, so if you need to skip over something or if you need to go back to something, all of that is down below. While you're checking out the description, make sure that you are subscribed because sometimes YouTube likes to unsubscribe people, and if you want to see more of my face, that's a good way to do it. I should probably also mention that we are still in Yellowknife. Last week when I did my weekly wrap-up, I let you know that it was the grossest day in city history, and since then the skies have cleared up substantially. We can actually go outside and it doesn't just smell like campfire everywhere, and the sky is no longer orange, so there's that. This month was also the Readathon, and I did not read all of the books on my TBR, but I did at least read one book to cover all of the prompts, or at least all of the collection of prompts, with a little bit of doubling up, but it still counts. In September, I read 13 things for a total of 3,976 pages. That takes into account converting audiobook minutes to pages, so 1,751 of those pages were actually about 52 hours of audio. The age breakdown for these books was 10 adult books and 3 YA books. I read 11 novels, 1 graphic novel, and 1 anthology. This month I read mostly non-fiction, mystery, thriller, and contemporary, followed by horror, science fiction, and fantasy. If you adjust by page numbers, not much changes. The biggest chunk of these books were from the library, but I did read some from publishers, authors of BookBox, and Amazon. I read 5 audiobooks, 4 ebooks, 3 hardcovers, and 1 paperback. The biggest chunk of my books were in the 200 to 399 page range, and all but 1 were published since 2020. I had an even split of male-female authors with 1 NB author, and most of the protagonists were female. In terms of setting, most of these were set in the US, with a few in the UK, Canada, and another world. In terms of diversity of subject matter, an alarming amount had no diversity to speak of, but I did read a bunch of queer books. In terms of star ratings, this month I had 4 3.5 star reads, 6 4-star reads, 2 4.5 star reads, and 1 5-star read. Let's start with our lowest rated read and work our way up to the highest, shall we? The first book on this list is The Society for Soulless Girls. This one is a dual perspective between Lottie and Alice. Lottie is very sporty and she's actually going to this college on a scholarship for field hockey, and she specifically wants to go to this college because 10 years ago it was actually shut down after 4 different people ended their lives or had their lives ended for them at this certain part of the campus. It turns out that her family actually knew one of these girls, so she really wants to dig in and see if she can investigate and find out what actually happened. Her dorm roommate Alice is a very grumpy academic woman who has always felt this anger within her, so when she finds a ritual in one of the random philosophy books she decides to read, she wonders if she can actually use this ritual to make herself less angry. They're kind of opposites, they definitely don't get along, but it comes to a point where they have to start working together if they want to make progress in figuring out what's going on. Although I did enjoy this one at parts, some of it seemed to kind of miss the mark a little bit for me, and I was expecting a little bit more out of it. That being said, if anything that I've said appeals to you, definitely read it because it was a good time. Next we have the graphic novel that I read this month, which was Spell on Wheels Volume 2. There's a squirrel. What are you doing, squirrel? Oh, it's gone. I was gonna try to show you, but it's gone now. I thought that this was only ever getting 1 volume, so I was really surprised when I was just flicking through the comics available through my library and went, hey, wait, they made another one of those? Cool. This is a road trip book about 3 witches trying to find this other person who's basically psychically calling out to one of them, and one of the witches in the group is actually falling for her, which is a little bit of a problem because she hasn't actually met her, but she is falling for the friend whose body she sometimes inhabits, which is a little bit of a mindfuck, really. I had a good time with this one. I didn't really remember the characters because it's been so long since I read the first volume, but I was able to slip right back into this and there were enough context clues that I was able to figure things out. Onto the true crime side of things, this month I read American Demon. This one had a very long subtitle that I believe was something to the effect of Elliot Ness and the search for America's Jack the Ripper. Search might not be the exact right word, but it's basically that. And the cover is on the screen now, so you can correct me. This one is exactly what it sounds like on the tin. It's about Elliot Ness, who is the guy that caught Al Capone, and then he moved to, I believe, Cleveland, which is where this took place. And there was a bunch of murders happening where body parts were just being left around the city, and there was obviously a lot of pressure to solve this. However, it is unsolved, and there are some theories as to why it's unsolved and who it could have possibly been, but this was about 100 years ago, so I don't know if we're ever going to get confirmation on who it might have been. This one was interesting. I'm Canadian, so I didn't know who Elliot Ness was, but he seems like a pretty interesting dude. He had a pretty interesting life, that's for sure. He definitely fell into some vices near the end of this book, and it's gotten to the point where it's a little bit weird that we're focusing in on one singular person, because at this time people would think that, you know, the faults of an entire city were on one singular person in one singular role, and as we know, several people work on these types of cases, and he shouldn't get all the credit, and he shouldn't get all of the disparagement either. My last 3.5-star book was The Last Word by Taylor Adams. This is about a woman who is house-sitting in a very, very secluded area. She's basically trying not to see anybody because she's running from something from her past. She's just there with her dog. Her closest neighbor is about 1/4 of a mile away, and they haven't actually talked face to face ever. They actually just play hangman by looking through telescopes and guessing each other's words using whiteboards. As we meet this character, she has just finished a terrible book that her neighbor actually recommended to her, and the little thing at the end of the Kindle app comes up and is like, do you want to rate this book? And she's like, hell yeah, I do. It was garbage. Wrote something to that effect and posted that review, not really thinking too much about it. However, the author starts contacting her and asking her to take down her terrible review, and she's like, no, that's what I thought of. Reviews are for readers. There we are, and things get spooky from there, basically. This one had some twists and turns, some of them that I really appreciated. I really appreciated that we got some flip-floppings of the twists and turns. However, there were a few things that I didn't really appreciate. How people with mental illnesses were treated in this book weren't my exact favorite thing in the world, but this book did have a lot of tension. I was constantly scared for our main character and the dog and other people that happened to wander into this situation. On to my 4-star books, the first one being In with the Devil. This one sounds like a movie, but trust me when I say it is a true crime book. This one was about this man who had some drug charges as well as some gun possession charges. He ended up getting 10 years and he went away to prison for this. However, about 6 months into his sentence, the DA on this case said, I have an assignment for you. What I want to do is put you in this very specific jail where this other person is being held because there's a chance that he is going to get out on one of his appeals, and we can't have that because we're pretty sure he has killed many, many people, but we've only got him for one so far, so we want to put you in there. You'll make friends with him, and then if he ends up confessing anything to you that we can verify, we will commute your sentence. This is obviously such an interesting case. It sounds like something out of a movie, and it was recently adapted into a mini-series that was absolutely fantastic. I actually watched the mini-series the week before I read this book, and going back and seeing the things that they directly took from the book was really interesting, especially if they took things and put it in just a slightly different place in the narrative. I found that really fascinating. So if this sounds interesting, either read this book, which is In with the Devil, or watch the miniseries, which is called Blackbird. It stars Taron Egerton and Paul Walter Hauser, and they're both phenomenal in this adaptation. The other memoir that I read this month was Pageboy by Elliot Paige. This one, overall, I enjoyed it. I don't think the writing in this book was really for me, especially when it came to how this was organized. It seemed to just be kind of organized into random stories that sometimes had connections, sometimes didn't have connections, and then the way it was written was maybe just a little bit too much for the ace side of me, because we'd be having discussions about this, that, or the other thing, and then all of a sudden we'd be in very, very sexual situations. Some of them were consensual and some of them weren't, and it was jarring both ways. However, it was very interesting to learn about his upbringing in Nova Scotia, as well as different roles he's done in movies that I haven't even seen, so I got that part out of it, but it wasn't as well written and fully fleshed out as I thought it was going to be. Next we have Dear Galaxy by Paige Lavoie. This is just such a delight. This one is set on a completely different planet. Everyone is some form of alien, they've got different skin colors, that type of thing, but then we also have this very nostalgic 50s type of decor, and the character dresses in kind of that style, which makes a lot of sense because that's how Paige Lavoie herself actually dresses. She's a delight. And our main character is working on the school newspaper as Miss Galaxy, who is the person who actually gives advice. Students write into her and she gives them advice. One day, just before the school is about to go on break, she actually gets a letter from a secret admirer, and she ends up going on a galactic road trip to try to figure out who this is, because he is leading her to different places around the galaxy for different clues to find out who he really is. This is absolutely delightful, and I really enjoyed that I kind of flip-flopped on thinking about who the person who was admiring her was. I was even thinking there was a chance that the admirer didn't actually know who Miss Galaxy was. There was going to be a whole big kerfluffle about that at the end, so this really kept me guessing, and I really enjoyed that about it. Next we have Camp Damascus, which is about this small town in Montana whose major industry is this gay conversion therapy camp. And our main character starts seeing these strange things around town and in her own home, and these weird things start happening, and then she starts regaining some memories. I don't know how much I want to really tell you about this because I didn't know that much going in, because the blurb doesn't give you all that much. So if you want absolutely no spoilers, I'm going to talk a little bit more, and then maybe after that you should skip ahead. One thing that I do want to point out is this is full of religious trauma. Although it's not expressly named, there are some OCD tendencies that the main character has that I feel like are brought on because of religious trauma, so that's just something that at least one person I know would need to know going into this book, so I wanted to throw that out there. If you don't want to know any more, just skip ahead. If you do want to know more, this one has to do with literally facing your demons, and that's just such an interesting thing, especially because these demons did not naturally just grow within these people who are doing the sins. These demons were put there by the church to make sure that the people couldn't do the sins, which is just so convoluted. And my goodness, that's why I do not get along with most religions and most people that are religious. Obviously there are exceptions to all of these rules, and obviously there are people that are queer affirming and religious, and those people are great, but the ones that are not queer affirming are not great. Apologies for the 10,000 camera angle changes throughout this video. Every time my camera battery dies, which is often enough, I have to move it, and then you're in a different place every time. Next on this list we have a very typical family. This is about a girl who hasn't seen her family in quite some time. Her siblings actually went away to prison about 15 years ago, and that was pretty much her fault, or at least that's the narrative we're led to believe. And then she finds out on a day where she's already having a pretty bad day that her mom died a couple of months previously and is actually leaving her house to her, but also to her two siblings, and in order for them to inherit, all three of them have to be there at the same time. This means she's going on a cross-country road trip because she refuses to fly, because she has a huge fear of it, which has something to do with her past, and she has to figure out if she can find her siblings and whether or not they'll be agree to be there at the same time, because she's pretty sure that they hate her. So, you know, a very typical family. This one was great. It had a lot of twists and turns. It had a lot of people trying to come together, a lot of dynamics between friends and boyfriends and new friends and trying to find old friends and family. It was fantastic. I really enjoyed the adventure of this. I really wanted to see how it was going to end, and I was satisfied by how it ended. Next we have Going Bicoastal by Dahlia Adler. I absolutely very much enjoyed this book. This one is about a girl named Dahlia, and she has a very important decision to make. Is she going to stay in New York for the summer with her dad like she usually does because that's where she lives, or is she going to spend the summer in Los Angeles with her mother, who moved there 3 years previously after the divorce because her mom got a promotion? Now the thing about this is, we don't know which she actually decides, because in this book she actually decides both, and we get to see the course of what happens while she stays in New York at the same time as what happens when she goes to Los Angeles. This means that you're pretty much getting two love stories for the price of one, and what I really liked about this is you could pit the two love interests against each other, but there's absolutely no reason to do that because they are on these two different timelines. So you just get to have this main character having a wonderful summer and learning these different things about herself in both different areas and just having a good time. It's good. I just really enjoyed it. On my 4.5 star reads, the first one being The 12-Hour Walk. This one is written by a man who is a huge adventurer. For example, I believe he holds the world record for the quickest traverse across Antarctica without any help whatsoever. He was just him pushing a sled 12 hours a day. He's also done triathlons, all of these other different things. He's climbed Everest a number of times, and one day during 2020, when he wasn't really allowed to go on these adventures, he decided that he was going to go on a 12-hour walk. No distractions, just him, and it was a way to kind of get his mindset right. And in this book, he is trying to convince you to do the same thing with different principles from his past to kind of get you to understand why this is such a good idea. I really enjoyed this. One day, maybe I'll go on a 12-hour walk, although I really love listening listening to audiobooks, and I really like being distracted while I'm walking, so I don't know when I'll get around to doing it, and I don't know how much I'm actually going to get from it while I do it, but he made a pretty persuasive case. My other 4.5-star read was Sorry Bro. This one is about an Iranian-American woman who is dating this guy, and something goes a little bit disastrously, so while he's away on a 3-week business trip, they decide to be on a break, and her mom is ecstatic about this because she actually really wants her to date an Iranian man, so she's sending her to all of these cultural events that are happening because they're events that happen every 3 years in their city. However, she ends up meeting a woman there who she's much more interested in and might have to come out to her family finally as bisexual. This was fantastic. It had some great dynamics. It was for the Queer or Not book club. Apparently the book club didn't like it as much as I did because they couldn't understand why the love interest would like the main character as much as she does, but I thought it was great. Cat hair floating between me and the camera. Hopefully the camera focused on me and not it. I just love if my camera understood that it's full battery and stopped pretending that it wasn't. That would be great. My 5-star read this month was The Quiet Tenant. This one is from 3 different perspectives. The first one we meet is the woman in the shed, and her title changes depending on where she is at the moment. This is a woman who was captured 5 years ago by this guy named Aidan Thomas, which really threw me because obviously that's also the name of an author I really like, so hearing his name equated with evil often was a little bit upsetting. But also this character of Aidan Thomas is also super charismatic, and nobody would think that he has a woman just in his shed and she's been there for 5 years. We also get the perspective of a woman who has a huge crush on Aidan Thomas and really wants him to finally notice her and maybe for them to get together. The third perspective we occasionally get is his daughter and what she thinks of him because she's a big daddy's girl. This one is absolutely thrilling and terrifying, and you just want to know if things are going to end up okay, and it speaks to the psychological breaking down of this character. She's not even allowed to think of herself as her actual name. She's not allowed to tell anybody her actual name. She has to go by Rachel, which is not her name. This was just written so incredibly well. I was on the edge of my seat the whole time. I wanted to know that everybody was going to get out of this. This was just fantastic. I highly recommend it. If you've read any of these, or if you now want to read any of these because I've talked about them, let me know about it down in the comments below. On the way down to the comments, if you hit that subscribe button, that would be very nice of you. If you don't feel like leaving a comment but want to make sure that I know you were here, just leave me an emoji or a smiley face if you happen to be on your keyboard. Some people have asked if there's a way to financially support this channel, so maybe I can buy a new camera and I don't have to film this in 10 different takes. And if you want to do that, I do have a Ko-fi account. The link for that, as always, is down below. You can like and share this as you see fit, and I will see you very soon. Bye!